All right, much attention, of course, being paid attention to what's happening at the border as well. That has become a very big theme of Donald Trump and his remarks all around the country, particularly his battleground states. I believe he's planning to touch on it if he hasn't already in North Carolina. He certainly did in Pennsylvania. The big issue is he's saying that that will all change if he's elected president. And some of the things we see going on in Colorado, which he has claimed is rampant crime being conducted by migrants, would stop as well. The governor of the state he's talking about with all of that joins us right now. Polis, the Colorado Democratic governor. Governor, good to have you. I want you to respond because I haven't had a chance to talk to you, sir, since Donald Trump had commented on what you are, in his words, allowing in your state. This is from the former president.
If your weak and ineffective governor, Jared Polis, was doing his job, he would be leading the fight to get these gangs and thugs the hell out of Colorado now. They took over complexes, and they have a radical left governor who's petrified. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He's afraid. He's chicken, okay? He's afraid.
Governor, what did you think of that?
Well, on the one hand, I'm flattered that former president's talking about me. I've got inside his mind, and that's good. Secondly, I'm glad he's attacking, people like Governor Brian Kemp and me rather than his opponent. So it's another example of him being off message, just like he was today when he said he probably shouldn't have left the White House after he lost the election in 2020, doubling down on being an election denier who tried to overturn the vote of the American people. Truth is, here in Colorado, crime is down 2 years in a row. We're investing in law enforcement and police. The city he visited, barely visited, just came over from the airport, went to a fancy hotel and went back. Great city in Colorado, Aurora. Crime is down there, even more than the state average. Its economy's doing great. We just celebrated another 1,000-person-plus employer coming to town. So
you don't think there's any? You don't think there's any problem in Aurora, Governor? You don't think there's any problem going on?
Oh, crime is a problem nationally, and that's why we need to elect a prosecutor like Kamala Harris, who will invest in police and law enforcement, like we hear in Colorado. We've turned the tide. Truth is, crime went up during President Trump's last administration as president, and Kamala Harris is the right person to fight it, invest in law enforcement, and bring it down, which is just what we're doing here in Colorado.
But, Governor, it isn't just Donald Trump saying this, right? At least 6 Colorado counties have filed lawsuits against you in the state because of an increase in that migrant crime. And a lot of folks there are saying that this is getting worrisome. Now, whether it goes to the extent that everyone's doors are getting broken down or some of these gangs are collecting rent, I mean, there's maybe room for debate there. But this doesn't seem isolated to some rants by Donald Trump, right?
Well, I think what you're talking about here is the failure of both President Trump and President Biden to secure the border. Kamala Harris supports a bipartisan plan to invest in border security, make sure we get out and kick out of the country foreign nationals who commit crime on our soil. We've captured.
Well, that's not. No, I'm sorry, sir, but that's not what these Colorado counties are saying. They're suing you. They're going after you and the state because they say you've let them down.
Well, again, the fact that people are here illegally is because of the failure to secure the border. And that's why we need to elect Kamala Harris. Colorado has a zero-tolerance attitude towards crime, whether it's committed by Americans or whether it's committed by foreign nationals. And
but they're saying, sir, I don't mean to keep interrupting you, but they're saying you're not doing that. That yes, you're right, this is a national problem, but you're not doing anything about the problem right in your own state.
Well, if they have suggestions, we're happy to work with them. I mean, we are working closely with local law enforcement, and if there's anything else the state can do with our resources, we are in, because we have zero tolerance for crime. Colorado is not a sanctuary state, and we cooperate closely with ICE, the FBI, on enforcing our laws.
So why does it keep happening? I understand what you're saying, Governor, but what they're saying is, yeah, it's a national issue, and yes, if they can come up with better ideas, maybe they should, but you're the governor. You're the guy in charge.
Well, again, I think that the fact that we're facing this problem is because of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden's failure to secure the border. It's why we need a new president and a new vision. Former presidents have failed.
Isn't that also Kamala Harris's fault?
I mean, she's his vice president,
so she bears blame for that too.
You know, when I hear that, Neil, that's one of the silliest things I hear. I have a wonderful lieutenant governor. Diane Primavera is her name. You might not have heard of her. She's great person.
Right.
You know, just as Donald Trump's last vice president, Mike Pence, had a vice president. The vice president, lieutenant governor, they have an important job. It's to be ready to take over if something happens to the principal, to the president, to the governor. Obviously, there are so many differences we can go into between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, right? Whether it's your difference on supporting small businesses and the opportunity economy, removing barriers to housing. I mean, on issue after issue, she said, I'm moving in a different direction, and she has the specifics to prove it.
All right. We'll watch what happens. Governor, always good having you. Thank you very much.
Good to see you, Neil.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.